John Deere is losing counties, not the hobby farmer with one green tractor and 40 acres of hay, but the grain families whose combines carry the whole year. Deere has owned that ground for a century, and now a family company from Germany has put full-service stores in Atlantic, Iowa, and Mitchell, South Dakota, and taken the combine customers a local dealer used to serve. Fort Dodge already running, Aberdeen announced. 1 town, then 3, then 5. 12 years ago there was nothing on that map. The men in Moline watched it happen, 1 town at a time. Start with how a company loses ground it has held since the 1800s, because Deere did not lose these counties by building a worse combine. It lost them by folding up its own map. Over the last 15 years, the green dealership stopped being the family business on the edge of town and turned into a chain. Back in 2011, there were 24 John Deere dealers in the country, big enough to run 10 stores or more. Today there are 61. Fewer owners, bigger territories, more distance between the grower and the person who signs off on his season. On a spreadsheet that reads as strength. In a farm town it reads as the name coming off the building. Watch how it lands on a good one. Ice Implement was a third-generation family dealership in Wisconsin, the kind of green store a county grows up around. One year it was named the John Deere Dealership of the Year, the best in the entire network. By the next January it had been bought and folded into a larger group. That is not a failing dealer going under. That is the finest independent green store in America getting swallowed, because scale is the only thing the strategy rewards anymore. The same winter, 2 more Deere dealers, Prairie State and Martin Tractor, disappeared into a group called Heritage that now runs 43 stores across 4 states. The signs change, the counter moves, and the grower just keeps driving. None of this was an accident, and it was not the local dealer's idea. It was drawn above him by the same layer of management that runs every consolidated business in the country, the people who look at a map of independent stores and see cost where a farmer sees coverage. Their logic is clean. 1 owner is cheaper to supply than 10. A bigger territory needs fewer buildings, and every merger quietly erases a few more people who used to answer the phone by name. And the grower who now drives past a corporate service desk where his neighbor used to run the parts counter is not a customer they can see from that height. He is a line on a report. Subscribe if you still think the man who owns the machine should be allowed to fix it, because the rest of this is about who is quietly betting he is right. Here is what that consolidation feels like from the seat. The territory one of those big groups now covers would have held a dozen independent dealers a generation ago. A single ownership group can run a string of green stores across 4 or 5 states, which looks efficient on a wall map in a corporate office and feels like a foreign country to the grower standing at the counter. The technician who finally rolls out to his place has a service radius the size of a small nation and a schedule that was set 3 counties over. The man who used to know that grower's machine by its engine note now knows it by a work order number, if he knows it at all. Now watch the German company, because for those same 15 years it did the exact opposite of everything Deere did. It did not sign up a dealer and hope he cared. It started building its own stores, company-owned, full service, and dropping them into the specific towns Deere's chain had grown too big to sit in. Atlantic, Iowa was the flagship, taking on the combine customers that Ziegler Ag used to carry in the western part of the state. Mitchell, South Dakota picked up the growers Butler used to look after. Fort Dodge, Iowa, opened as the 5th store of its kind in the whole country, and it was running before this season even started. That is not a company dipping a toe in the water. That is a company laying foundations. Walk it down to the dirt, because a map is an abstraction until it is your own county. When the German company opens a full-service store in your town, it is not a demo tent at the farm show that packs up on Sunday. It is a parts counter with the shelves stocked, a service bay with the door rolled up, and a combine sitting on the lot that a neighbor can climb into on a Tuesday afternoon. For 20 years, the trend in that town ran one direction, toward the far away, toward the regional group 2 hours off that answers the phone when it can get to it. Suddenly the trend runs the other way, toward the near, and it is wearing a name nobody in that county grew up saying. That is what losing a county actually looks like. Not a press release, a different color of paint on the edge of town, and a phone that gets picked up. So the bill for 15 years of consolidation comes due all at once, and it does not arrive as a headline. It arrives as a choice a grower never used to have to make. When the German company takes over the combine customers Ziegler Ag used to serve, every one of those farmers wakes up with a decision in front of him his father never faced. Stay with the green machine and the distant chain, or walk across the road to the store that just planted itself in his county and put the whole operation on the table. Before we go further, we put the 2-page version of all of this on one sheet you can read in the cab. Free, no email and no sign-up, just the checklist, and the link is in the description. Pin it above the bench. Now, the German company is not renting counter space anymore, and that is the whole move. It is done depending on somebody else's dealer to carry its combines and answer for them when the season is on the line. And the group carrying the next wave of stores is not even German. A Canadian dealer group called Genag looked at the northern plains, at the spring wheat country running all the way up to the border, and decided the smart bet was to plant full-line stores in the towns the American giant had thinned out. Aberdeen, South Dakota opens first, with the building already secured. Minot, North Dakota follows. Bismarck comes in behind it. 3 towns in the Dakotas that a year ago had no such store now have one going up, each carrying the whole German line under one roof. Longtime dealers are stocking the German combine parts over in Glencoe and St. Cloud, Minnesota. And out in Omaha, where these machines are already bolted together, the company is putting up a new research center and a customer building. You do not break ground on a research center in a state you plan to leave. You break ground in a state you plan to own. And the ground being contested is not marginal country. Western Iowa and eastern South Dakota carry some of the most productive corn and bean acres anywhere on earth, worked by the exact operations that buy a size of combine that costs as much as a house and run it flat out through a compressed fall. This is not a challenger nibbling the edge of the map. It is walking straight into the center of it, into the counties where a single combine sale is worth the most, and where the loyalty to green ran the deepest and the longest. Count what that actually cost Deere, because it is never a single lost sale. When a grower switches the combine, the machine that runs the most hours and prints the biggest invoice on the whole farm, he does not switch it back the next year. He reorganizes his entire shop around the new color, the parts, the service relationship, the trade-in, the second machine, the neighbor who leans on the fence and asks how it ran through wet corn. One combine sale is 5 years of a family's equipment budget walking across the road, and it walks for the plainest reason there is. The near store beat the far one on the only thing that was ever really for sale, which is showing up. And the hardest line in the whole ledger is the one about inheritance. The green dealership used to be a thing a family passed down, the way the farm itself gets passed down. Now the family that built it takes the check, the sign comes off the front, and the young man who would have run that parts counter goes to work for a chain headquartered in another state, or he leaves the county for good. The consolidation did not just move the service 2 hours down the road. It pulled the ladder out of the town, and everybody under 30 noticed. If this were only about tractors, it would be a farm story and nothing more. It is not. The same move has already been run in one corner of rural America after another, and it always ends the same way, with the company that decided a small town was beneath it, losing that town to whoever finally bothered to show up. Look at what happened in rural retail. Back in 1938, a man started a little mail-order tractor parts business off his kitchen table, and by 1940, he had opened his first real store. He put it in Minot, North Dakota, of all places, because Minot sat right in the middle of tractor country between Texas and the Canadian line. The big box giants that came later, the home improvement chains everybody knows by their color, drew their maps around the cities and wrote the small towns off as too thin to bother with. So that little parts company planted its stores in exactly the towns they skipped. It is called Tractor Supply, and it now runs better than 2,400 stores and is the biggest rural retailer in the country. It did not outspend the giants. It just went where they refused to go, and the ground was sitting there for the taking. Read the rhyme in that, because it is almost too clean to be real. The town where that rural empire opened its very first store, Minot, North Dakota, is one of the exact towns the German company is walking into right now, with a full combine store. The lesson is nearly a century old, and nobody in Moline seems to have written it down. When a giant decides your town is too small to serve, it is not protecting a margin. It is handing the county to the next company with the nerve to park a building on the edge of it. And the grower already knows which way this runs, because he has been voting for years with the one number nobody in a boardroom can spin. Used prices. If the new green machines were truly the promised land, the old ones would be falling in value the way a car does the minute it rolls off the lot. They are doing the opposite. Good used iron, the 10-year-old machines a grower can still understand, and still fix in his own shed, has been setting records at auction. Used combine values climbed better than 7% in a single year, while the clean older tractors hold their money like gold. A plain 1982 International, with better than 6,000 hours on the clock, crossed $30,000 at auction. A case from 1993 that growers still line up to fight over went for better than $45,000. Nobody pays that for a worn-out machine. They pay it for a machine they are still allowed to own. The auction ring is where the pretending stops. A man does not raise his hand on a cold morning in a muddy lot for a machine he does not believe in. When the older iron climbs and the shiny new stuff sits under a lot light, that is not nostalgia talking. That is a market quietly pricing in who is allowed to fix what, and it has been pricing it that way for a while now. Ask why the 10-year-old machine in particular, and the answer is the whole fight in miniature. 10 years is roughly the line between the iron a grower can still diagnose and repair in his own shed and the newer machine that routes every fault through a screen he is locked out of. The market did not pick that number out of the air. It priced the exact year the machine quietly stopped belonging to the man who paid for it. Do not let anyone tell you old iron is worthless while the sign comes down off the family store. It is the most honest signal in the entire market, and it is saying the same thing the dealer map is saying and the German stores are saying. Growers want the machine they control and the store that is near, and they are done pretending otherwise. Ice Implement was the best green dealer in America the year before it vanished into a chain. The market is not broken. It is telling the truth, and the truth is walking toward the near store, one county at a time. So here is the company that has been taking the ground, the one we have kept nameless until now because the name is the least interesting thing about it. It is called Claas, an independent family company from Germany, founded back in 1913, and still owned by the same family more than 100 years later. It is not a division of one of the American giants, and it is not owned by anyone sitting in Moline. It answers to a family, and that family has decided the American grain belt is worth planting a flag in, one town at a time. The stores are called Farm Point, company-owned and full service, and they carry the entire line. The Lexion and the Trion combines, the Jaguar forage harvesters, and the Axion, Arion, and Xerion tractors. And these machines are not shipped in from across an ocean as a curiosity for the lot. The Lexion has been built in Omaha, Nebraska for the better part of 30 years, and the company is now pouring money into a research center right there in the same state. This is not a foreign brand testing the water with a demo unit. This is a company that builds in America, sells in America, and now services America out of stores it owns outright. Listen to why they say it works, because they are not hiding the reasoning. The senior man over the Americas put the whole thesis in one flat sentence. That quick, local support is what builds loyalty. That is the exact thing Deere traded away for scale. Their dealer development chief has spent these years drawing the opposite map from the one drawn in Moline, a map that adds stores instead of subtracting them. Their vice president for America called the Dakota stores a commitment to agriculture in the Dakotas, and the head of the whole group said plainly that the company is fully committed to the United States. Wave it off as sales talk, right up until you count the buildings going up across Iowa and the Dakotas with their name bolted to the front. And to be fair, because the sales floor never will be, this is not about the man behind the green counter. A good local Deere dealer is still one of the finest partners a grower can have, and plenty of them are fighting the same consolidation from the inside and losing. The villain here was never the parts man who knows your name and stays late in October. It is the strategy drawn far above him, the one that decided your county was a rounding error at the precise moment a German family firm decided it was a market worth building in. So walk back out to that map one more time, the one where the counties are quietly changing color a town at a time. Atlantic, Mitchell, Fort Dodge, Aberdeen, Minot. The grower in every one of those towns did nothing wrong. He bought the best machine money could buy, and he stayed loyal for 3 generations, and the company thanked him by moving his dealer 2 hours down the road. Now somebody has moved a full store back into his county, and the only thing left for him to do is walk in the door. You are not stuck, and you were never crazy for being angry about it. The ground is finally moving toward whoever respects your clock. Subscribe if you would rather watch this happen one town at a time than read about it after the map is already finished. The full manual is called the Equipment Freedom Manual. 21 systems, $39, links below if you want it.